Hey, good morning, gentlemen. Hey, you have a piece of paper on your chair. Almost everyone has it. You know, this is not only a teaching, but a Q&A time. So you have questions, and we want your questions. So please just write out something and throw it in that bowl right over there. And because we know a little bit about guys, you're not supposed to have questions. We just want everyone to write something. I don't care what you write. Throw it in that bowl. So if you have a good question, great. If you have nothing, write something and just throw it in there so nobody's embarrassed about their questions. So otherwise, you're not going to get your questions answered here today, and I'm sure you have some really good ones. And everyone should have a bag from the back. That's your, we probably need to move this. Okay. All right, let me introduce myself. I'm Linda Hoffman, Mark Hoffman's wife. I think all of you know who Mark is. This is Fawn Goodrich, my assistant and cohort in everything we do. We come from different backgrounds. This is Nitsa Esslinger. She's Danny Esslinger's wife. And Danny is our youth director who's going to become our counselor. And Nitsa and Danny do, what do you do right now, Nitsa, as far as your counseling?
Right now we just do the parenting class and we do pre-marriage, but in January we'll do a lot more.
So they've done a tremendous amount of counseling. So we are going to take about the first 25 minutes to give you some background, some foundation, and then we're just going to open up to questions and answers. And we'd love this to be interactive. Like if we start to say something you think that is just really off the wall, I do not get that. Feel free to raise your hand and say, what the heck is that about? Okay, so we want you to be free to do this. But at the end, we already have about 9 questions that got sent into us that we're going to deal with. And our hope is that in the end, you walk out here with a far greater understanding of this female in your life or future female in your life that confuses you and is not like you, okay? So first of all, I want to put up a quote. It says, I found this quote and I really loved it. It says, can I get that first one up there, Jim? Yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot about the pictures. Let me go to the next picture. We know that we are very complicated, us women. You men have one switch, and we have a whole lot of them. We know that we're different from you. Let's go on to the next. We know we think different, even in how we see colors, okay? You got the basic red, blue, green, and we've got minor things for all of those. So we're different. We have a lot more words than you guys have. God just made us different. So the first quote I want to say is, in the midst of this, we want and really need someone who will be involved in our lives. When we open up the hidden part of ourselves, even for a minute, we need someone who will react with us. We need someone who will share our strong emotions. We need someone to be involved, so involved that he will be afraid with us, glad with us, depressed with us, who will expose his humanity as we expose ours. This draws us from loneliness and joins us together. And this sensitivity does not solve any problem or analyze any situation. It simply offers one human being the gift of another, human being's self, in an attempt to reach out and join hands with another person in this struggle that we call life. Life is not easy, it's a struggle, and we really want to share it with someone. So when you're dating, you are looking for someone to share life with. And when you find someone, most of you date not just because you want to date, but you're really looking for someone. And you marry someone who believes in you. You ask the person to marry you because they believed in you. You might believe in them too, but your greatest joy is that they really like me. They like what I say. They like how I look. I feel secure and accepted in their presence, so I want to spend my life with them. So that's where, and then things start to change after that. I remember when Mark and I were dating, when he had asked me to marry him, and how many people told me at that point, oh, you're getting married. It's all downhill from there, right? All downhill. And I remember getting kind of scared. Like, really? Is that what happens? So we're going to take a few minutes to provide you a strong foundation for relationships, because if your foundation isn't set, it does not matter what you try to do in the intimacy department, it falls apart. So there's foundational things that if they're set in place, then there's a strong relationship and intimacy grows. So first of all, the next slide, there are 3 basic needs for the human race: acceptance, security, and significance. Opposite of acceptance is rejection, feel unloved or shame. Opposite of security is you're unprotected, alone, or abandoned. Opposite of significance is you're worthless, inadequate, helpless, hopeless. So when acceptance grows, then the other things begin to diminish, and intimacy grows. When the opposite, when rejection or shame or feelings of unprotectedness grow, then intimacy begins to wane. And in dating, you can hide a lot of things. You know, she loves you. You feel good about her. She feels good about you. You show the good parts. And we can hide a lot of things, heart issues and a lot of fears. But in marriage, it comes out because now the real person is, you just can't keep hiding. So marriage, the next quote, is not so much a cement as a solvent, a freeing up of this man and this woman to be themselves and to help each other in the process of discovering the plan of God for their life and incorporating the image of God into their soul. And I love that quote because a solvent means I'm making it safe for this other person to be secure. Intimacy grows where there's security. When I see something broken, or when you see something broken in this person that you love, you have the ability to strengthen and change things, to bring acceptance and love and security so that the broken thing can be healed. So when Mark and I came together, it wasn't just because he was perfect and I was perfect. It kind of felt that way for a while we were dating. Then we get married and all of the pressures of life begin to show you broken pieces. And when he loved me anyway, in spite of that, our closeness grew and grew. But we can't have a really good partnership unless we know the nature of the partners. So if a partnership's strong, intimacy is strong. So let's just look at a definition of masculinity really quick. So at the heart, this comes from a huge study called Biblical Manhood and Womanhood. At the heart of mature masculinity is a sense of benevolent responsibility to lead, provide for, and protect women in ways appropriate to man's different relationships. So you might be a father or a husband or a brother. You have different relationships with women, but you are supposed to be a leader, a servant leader, not initiating every action, but providing the general pattern of initiative. Not presuming superiority over the people that you lead, but mobilizing the strengths of the people you lead. A good leader is not the smartest or the best, but he might be guiding someone smarter or better than he is in a particular area. And as you recognize the giftings of your wife, your children, your fiancé, and you support them as they grow in that gifting. So a servant leader, to provide, basically, if there's no bread on the table, you should feel the ultimate responsibility, the main pressure to do something about it. Families work together on how to make that happen, but the main pressure should come from you. And to protect is that God-given responsibility to step forward and put yourself between harm and the women in your life. Now, it says mature masculinity because everybody's at a different place, a different level. But the more mature you are, the more you will feel that responsibility to do those things. As you do those things, the security of a woman increases. So does her desire for intimacy with you. Now, on the other hand, the woman, femininity defined, is that at the heart of mature femininity is a freeing disposition to affirm, receive, and nurture strength and leadership from worthy men in ways appropriate to women's different relationships. I might be a wife, a mother, a sister. To affirm means that first of all, a freeing disposition means I submit to you of my own free will. When I marry you, you don't make me submit, according to the scriptures. I do it of my own free will. I see you as a worthy man, and I'm safe to put myself under your leadership. To affirm means that I believe and advocate the partnership that God gave us. To receive is that I feel natural and glad to accept your authority and leadership. And to nurture is we're partners. I'm assistant, I'm a mother to your children, I'm your helper. And women bring in nurturing strengths and insights that make you wiser and stronger. We are different from you by God's design. We're designed to help you. So when I can look at the foundation of things and make sure that that's set in my relationships, they're going to become stronger on all different levels. We were still going to fight and argue with that. You make a good point in your marriage.
Yeah, I think Danny and I, we've been married 15 years, and we've gone to several years of marriage counseling, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But one of my favorite things that a counselor shared with us is that marriage problems are extremely common, that we're always surprised with how different men and women think, and we argue about the same things, like money or receiving love, how we give love, things like that. And the reality is we just need to understand we think really different, and that it's very common, and that there's peace in that. That the problem shouldn't be about how we think differently. Do you understand?
But if we see that we're partners, that he has, really, when on the way to my wedding, I said, I got Mark Hoffman. I can't believe I got Mark Hoffman. 4 years later, I'm thinking, so what did he bring to the table, right? So because we're so different in the way we think, so if I understand the design of my partner, then I am going to know how to proceed to make a good relationship. Good dancers respond to the moves of the other dancers. We were watching a movie last night, Tim Allen. We were watching this old Tim Allen movie, and they both decided that they were going to be the leaders. So then they started to try to dance, and they couldn't move because somebody has to lead, somebody has to be first. So good dancers respond to the moves of the other dancers. We don't have the same steps. We have different strengths, and we complement, not duplicate. And just for your knowledge, even with your own children and stuff, the culture is trying to erase all the distinctions between the genders and let each person define their own self, their own nature. That's paganism. That's what it says. You made yourselves. You can be anything you want to be. But it's not leading us to more confidence and security. In fact, this quote right here, the consequences of confusion over sexual personhood. We are not a free, happy harmony among gender-free people relating on the basis of abstract competencies. In other words, you just get to be competent in whatever you want to be competent. Rather, there's more divorce, more homosexuality, more sexual abuse, more promiscuity, more social awkwardness, and more emotional distress and suicide that comes from the loss of God-given identity, all right? So, back to the needs of the human race. So the next slide, we need acceptance, security, and significance. So we're going to now talk specifically, how does that look for a woman? Looks different for a man than it looks for a woman. If I am strong, if I, as a man, am strong in the areas of giving my wife acceptance, security, and significance, then the other parts, the rejection, the aloneness, the abandonment, things that she may have grown up with are going to begin to fall off of her. And how do you help her out of the bad parts? Because you're going to recognize after the dating's over and the marriage is here, now the hurt comes up and the brokenness comes up. So one of the things is we are going to try to get from you the things that really only God can give us. That's the truth. We're going to first come to you to solve all our needs, to give us a sense of belonging, and that's going to be too heavy for you. You can't bear that. If someone was molested or raped or abandoned by their father, then they're going to come into this marriage where someone took from them rather than protected them, so there's fear and rejection and shame, and it's going to affect your pursuit of her sexually. A lot of times women in those situations will be promiscuous before marriage and then afterwards will basically clam up because the truth is someone has used them and taken from them. And for a certain point in their life, they realize that's the only way I can get intimacy, so I'm going to get it. Now in the marriage, they realize I have a place of belonging, and this sexual place becomes difficult and complicated, and you think, what the heck happened, right? So we need someone to point us to God. That brokenness needs to be pointed to God. We need to get our security from God. It's so important that you do that you express Christ to us, because we need you to and we want you to, even if we're trying to get from you something you can't give us. Not simply respond to our pursuit of God. Like a lot of times at the women's retreat, the women will tell me, the men aren't going to church. It's too hard for them to get the kids, or my husband doesn't really go if I don't go. So don't respond to her pursuit. You lead in that. Your leadership gives her great security here. So that just leads me to, Fawn's going to now talk about the deepest intimacy really is spiritual. Women have 4 needs, and if I can have that next slide, basic needs, but the deepest is spiritual.
Absolutely. And when I married Greg, I really did want him to be my savior. I was just so in love with him. But God did not have that for me. God didn't want me to find my salvation in him. He wanted me to find my salvation in Christ. And so when I married Greg, he was so wonderful before we got married. And then after we got married, the marriage was very challenging because I was trying to find my salvation in him, and God was never going to let that happen. So I had to pursue the Lord deeply. So the spiritual need is so great. You will never meet all your wife's needs. I'm so grateful that God found me and taught me. It's the greatest love ever. I'm grateful that Greg wasn't everything because it drew me to the Lord, and it was very sweet. So the spiritual aspect of your marriage really is the strongest part. There's emotional, there's physical, and there's spiritual, and we underestimate that strength of that spiritual point. The spiritual point really is the strongest part. We need you to pray with us. We need you to worship with us. This is where my trust in Greg and Greg's trust in me comes from. It is not about him doing a list or me doing a list. It's about the fact that he has a relationship in Christ. He always says to me, he says, Fawn, like, I know that we have difficulty, but the fact that you said yes to God before you said yes to me in our marriage is what my hope is in. And the same thing is true in reverse. It's not about him doing a list. My trust comes from the fact that he has a relationship with Christ, and I know that God's going to speak to him. I know that God's going to hear him. So when we come up against an impasse, it's my relationship. We are both people. We are going to fall. We are human beings, both of us, and we will fall under temptation. But it is my insurance policy is my relationship with Jesus Christ. His relationship with Jesus Christ is my insurance policy. It's not him. It's that relationship with Jesus Christ that really is where my security comes from. And so when you make the spiritual aspect of your relationship primary, your wife, the amount of security that comes from that, because the wife's number one is security. I never knew that. Linda actually had to tell me that because I honestly did not know, like, where am I broken here? What is going on? And she had to say to me, Fawn, a woman's greatest need is security. I'm like, really? That's really true. That's what the issue is here. I was not feeling secure, and so that was my number one need. Well, it's really my relationship with Christ that's going to keep me secure. It's his relationship with Christ that's going to help me feel secure. Because I know that Christ will speak to him.
Part of that security, look at the second picture there. I love that picture because I felt like in the early years of marriage, that's how Mark and I were. He would frustrate me and I would frustrate him, and we knew we had to make through it. But you see, even though there's a wall of misunderstanding, they're holding hands. Both of us would go to God. He would go to God and say, what the heck do I do with her? And I would go to God thinking, what is wrong with him? But then God would show each of us ourselves. The Lord never said to me, I'm so sorry about Mark. I don't know what to do about Mark. He would always show me what I did. So both of us would come back together apologizing. And then, you always hear the saying that intimacy after a fight is the best. Because you're most open, you're most vulnerable, and you accept each other the best at that point. And so we worked through it because of our relationship with God.
Ephesians 5:25 says, husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Well, that's a huge mouthful right there. That is huge. But a woman is most secure with a sacrificial man. Women feel most insecure when they're married to somebody who's self-focused and detached from them. They're the most insecure. So if your wife felt secure, if you could give your wife security in your relationship with Christ and in your spiritual walk with the Lord, that is going to make her feel more connected and more intimate with you. So what does that look like? How do you do that? How do you become that sacrificial man? It looks like serving your wife. It looks like putting her needs above your needs. Whatever it takes, that's what's going to be the priority for me. Communication. I know that's really hard, and I know that men don't like to do it. We'll talk about that more in a little bit, but communicate with her. Don't need to be nagged. If you can't do something, say no initially up front, but don't say no and then not do it. Let your yes be yes and let your no be no. Study her and find out what it is that she needs. If you don't take the time to find out what it is she needs and what her love languages are, if you don't know how to speak in the language that means love to her, how will you ever express love? You could be bringing her flowers when that's not really, gifts is not her love language. So finding out what her love languages are needs a...
So let's have that next slide up there, because one of the questions were, what are the love languages and how important are they really?
Yeah, I want to touch on this. I think love languages are huge, and you can actually go online, you can Google in love languages, and you can take a free test to figure out what they are. How many of you have done it? Okay, so like half of you. So,
but how many of you have asked your wife to do it for you?
Or did they make you do it? Which one? Okay. Yeah. Okay, so anyways, so what it is there another slide to show them?
Oh, Nathan?
Yes.
Did you mean ask your wife to answer the question like she thinks you would answer?
No, what I meant is you went to her and said, honey, I'd like to know what your love languages are. Will you take that test? I'd tell you, a wife would go, you want me to do it for your sake? For you to understand me better? Yeah. That's a big deal right there.
That'll start your intimacy off, right? Okay, so these are the 5 love languages. Acts of service, which means that your primary love language would be you like when people do things for you, like help you clean or projects or whatever. Quality time, you just like to spend time with people one-on-one. Affirmation means you want them to affirm you in things that you do, say, look, however. Physical touch is touching, and gifts is gifts. Big or small, it doesn't matter. Bought or picked a flower, all the same. I love the love languages because they really enlighten Danny and me. Danny and I are extreme opposites. Actually, when Jim Dealing did our marriage prep, he said he had never seen 2 more opposing people get married. And he told us it would be our greatest strength and our greatest weakness. And we've experienced both. So typically, when you take this test, you are going to have 1 to 2 love languages score pretty high. I think the highest is a 12 or a 14, something like that. So they're going to score pretty high. And typically, we love how we want to be loved. So those are all good in themselves, except if you love someone and you are not meeting their need, it's not going to work out. So picture it like a bullseye. The love languages are like the bullseye. If you know your wife's love language, mine is acts of service and affirmation. If Danny is wanting to spend quality time with me all the time, and this was true for our marriage, that does not fill me. I feel like, why doesn't he ever want to help me with this project? That's how I was thinking. And he's thinking, man, I'm giving you all I got. I want to take you on dates. I want to do this, but it wasn't hitting my mark. So here's a couple things about love languages. Is 1, they are so vulnerable. It takes transparency because a love language sounds like, I just want you to tell me how awesome I am all day long. That's affirmation, right? That's what it is very vulnerable to express, you're not telling me enough about me, you know? Or acts of service or gifts. I want you to buy me a gift. Like, can you please spend your money on me? So those types of things are very, very vulnerable and transparent, and you have to be willing to express that that is a need of yours so they can fulfill it. Now, when you're like Danny and I, so opposing, it is death to me to sit and watch a movie with him without multitasking, because I'm an acts kind of person. So I have to choose. That is his top love language. When we go on dates or when we're having conversation, I am going to give him my all, because that fills him up. It is not my job to critique him and say, that's so stupid that you want me to sit and make eye contact with you. I'm going to say that is important to him. It is his top love language need. I'm going to make it happen. Now, disclaimer is I love the love languages, and as great of a tool they are not to replace your relationship or dependency on God. We teach the pre-marriage class, and we've counseled couples, and people will say, well, he's not doing my love language. Well, the bottom line is marriage is designed for you to love the Lord more, right? Marriage represents the Trinity. So if you are not in with the Lord, then you guys are not going to come together well. Do you know what I mean? So if the love languages, they're a great tool, but they're not working, you need to go to the Lord and say, what are you asking me to do in this marriage? And have enough relationship with the Lord to hear from him and respond. So love language tools are great, but they do not replace dependency on the Lord.
But they're so helpful because I think, like Mark could care less if I give him a gift. It does not matter to him that I forgot his birthday. But if I tell him, you worked hard on that message, I so appreciate the time you spent to draw me closer to God by that message on Sunday. He's like, that's great. That's fantastic.
Let me add one more thing. So Danny, when we finally got this principle, and we went to several years of marriage counseling, but when we finally got it, Danny would say, I cannot believe sweeping the floor has been more of a turn on than anything else. And it's just the truth. When he completes a project that I want done, I am like, you, me, later. You know, because it fills me. It makes me think he heard me. He wants to be my partner in this and whatever, you know,
So next question that came up right along this line is, how important is talking really? A guy sent this in. Really? Is this important? So men pursue intimacy through physical, visual, touch, just instantly. Women through relationships and words and actions first. You want to talk about that?
So the number 2 need of a woman is soft, non-sexual connection. We need to know that we are more than just your sexual partner. I know you're thinking, but that's just not normal for men. That's not my need, and I don't need to do that. Why is that? And it doesn't matter. That's her need. And you need, if you want to be intimate with your wife, need to learn how to do that. You need to hold her hand. You need to, without thinking, this is where this is going to lead. You need to go and sit and put your arm around her without thinking, where's this going to lead? Just non-sexual touch. Romance means meeting an unspoken need or desire because you value them. When you bring me flowers because I ask you to bring me flowers, that's just obedience. Romance is when you meet a need that's unspoken, but is a desire of mine. Romance, when women want someone who pursues them and meets their needs outside of the bedroom. We don't meet each other's needs based on our needs. We meet each other's needs based on the other person's needs.
One thing really funny, in our early years of marriage, Mark would say, goodbye, I'm going to work, and he'd leave, and I'd cry because he didn't kiss me. He did not need a kiss to leave. I needed a kiss and a hug. And I was resentful that he didn't get it, right? And then finally one day I thought, why don't you just tell him? Right? And it was so vulnerable to just say, honey, could you give me a hug and a kiss? And he looked at me like, sure. And then I was resentful that he didn't need it, right? And then I had to think, why can't I tell him what I need, and he wants to give it to me? Why can't that be enough? You know, so we're evolving too with you guys as we understand.
A great idea is to plan a date. Like, put some time in and plan a date. Now, she may say, I don't really want to go to that restaurant. Could we go here? Just say yes. It's not about the fact that you put all this planning and this time. It's about that you did put the effort in. And if she says, but I'd rather go here, sounds great, honey. Practice. Sounds great, honey. Just say yes. That sounds great.
And in your bag, if you have a bag, there is a list of, we went online to pick out the best top dates that you can do. They're just a whole bunch of different ideas. Because Fawn says you used to be fun. You used to come up with ideas.
One of the greatest indicators of a successful marriage really is how much fun you have. When I dated Greg, one of the things I remember the most was how much fun we had. We were not having sex. We were having fun. And it drew me to him like a magnet because we were having so much fun. And then you get married and then
life comes in and gets busy.
There's no fun anymore. I remember how fun he was.
Can I say too, you guys, we live in a technology savvy age, and you have phones that you can put reminders on. And Danny, I remember looking through his phone once just for something else, and I found that he had an alarm to text me something like text Nita something nice about her. And I was like at first annoyed, thinking this is so robotic. I didn't know how I felt about it. But then I was like, well, I mean, at least he was trying. At least he had it scheduled. And so then I just told myself I wasn't going to look at his phone anymore because I wanted to be surprised. So I just think you can set it in your phone to remind your spouse, text her, I love you, or go buy her something, or whatever the case is.
Mark just sent me 30 hearts. This is so outside of his, and a spade, you know, and on a text. And I'm thinking, wow, he was thinking about me for no good reason.
My husband sends me music, so we love music. That's our love together. And so he will send me music. Just, it's the sweetest thing in the whole world. Songs that we love together, songs that we, you know, it's sweet. It means that he was thinking about me. There's 3 different kinds of differences in a marriage: celebrated differences, tolerated differences, and rejected differences. In order to have a good marriage, you have to celebrate your differences. Do you know that you naturally celebrated your differences when you dated? When she did something, you were like, that is so interesting. I never thought about that. And now, you know, you didn't look at her and be like, well, you're weird, and roll your eyes at her. Nobody went on a second date with somebody that rolled their eyes at them. Do you know what I mean? So they don't think you're weird. They think that that's interesting, and that's really cool that you're like that. The third need of a woman is open and honest communication. When you come home from work and she says, hi, honey, how are you doing? Fine. What'd you do today? Nothing. Who'd you talk to? No one. Where'd you go? Nowhere. Like, she's trying to gain access to your heart. The only way she's going to open up her heart to you is when you've opened up your heart to her. And when she asks you those questions, she's trying to find out what's going on inside of your heart. When she sees you struggling with something or angry about something and she wants to help you to process that, she's trying to find out what's going on inside of your heart. And if you won't open that up, she will be detached from you in other ways.
And you can say, I really don't feel like talking right now, hon. Could I answer those questions in a half an hour? Just say
Absolutely.
that. Oh, okay. Tell her when, not.
Yeah. And if you think about it, you say, well, I'm just quieter. I've talked to men since we've been doing this. I've been talking to men about it. And just, well, I just don't talk that much. I'm just quieter. I just don't do that. And I call, no, that's not the case. When you're sitting in the backyard with your friend, hanging out, talking, you're talking to him. When you go to the ball game, you're talking with him. That's the idea about having fun. When you're out with her having fun, you'll be more likely to talk. So fun is a great way to get you to open up. Somebody raise their hands. Yes.
I'm going to ask maybe a dumb question, but,
No dumb questions.
well, I mean, you kind of answered it by saying, like, when you go out and have fun, you talk more naturally.
Yeah.
But, like, there's a certain sense of, I mean, you're trying to gain access to my heart. Just saying that sounds funny. It is true. It's 100% true. But sometimes it can be hard to be in touch with what that means when you don't relate to men that way, for sure. Generally speaking.
Yeah.
And you don't want to relate to other women that way. So then how do you cultivate that open-heartedness with your
Well,
wife?
let's hope that it's also how you should be relating to the Lord. That's why God gave you a wife. She's the flesh right there. This is my opinion. He wants to relate to you that way. He wants you to be that open. She is an avenue to help to mine your heart so you'll know what's in your heart so you can talk to him about that. She is the next most intimate thing to God. He wants that kind of intimacy with you. She wants that kind of intimacy. Just because you don't do it at work, you don't do it with other women, you don't do it at the ball game with your friend, doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. The word says, examine your heart. We need to know that. When Women want to be controlling, and we don't get to be controlling. You don't want to open up your heart, but God wants you to open up your heart. And that's why he gave you a helpmate, to help you, to mine your heart well, and to say, what's in there? What's making you so angry right now? What's happening for you in that situation? That's how she's going to feel connected to you. When you say nothing and no one, you didn't do that when you dated her. You're not going to do that when you date her. You're going to try to find out who she is and what's going on inside of her. And that's what drew her to you, because you pursued her and you wanted to know her. Nisa was talking about the gifts, the love language of gifts. Love language of gifts is my love language, but it's not the gift. The gift love language is somebody that knows you. It's being known by somebody. I love that Greg knows what kind of ice cream I like. And he can walk in that store and buy my ice cream and bring it home and knows exactly what topping I like and how I like. He knows that. When he knows that about me, that means everything to me. It's about being known. That's that love language.
I think, too, I mean, one small thing is maybe just ask questions. That's something I feel like Danny is really, because my husband's super quiet, and he's just naturally an introvert. So I just say, if you just ask me questions, if you feel like you really don't have anything to say, just ask me questions, and then I will most likely counter them back to you, and you're able to answer them. So, even if you need a question reformed because you didn't understand it, say, could you rephrase it? Like, because you want to participate in the conversation. You want to be a part of it, even if you don't have it,
And it's okay for you to say, can we get to the point? Okay, we tend to want to give you way more details.
One of the things that Linda was telling me about Mark is that she'll come in and want to talk to him. He's like, okay, just tell me what the need is that you're trying to solve, and then we'll go back to all the other stuff. So tell me what the need, because he just needed to have that in his mind so that he could track with her.
Yeah,
'Cause he's a man.
where are you trying to
Hunters
go,
and
honey?
gatherers.
Where are you
Just tell
trying
me
to
what
go?
the end, and then, okay, now go ahead and tell me the points, because then you know what you need.
And he was gentle. He sat down one time and said, look, men are different than women, and we just get to the point, and then you can go over all the nuances and all of the details, like with your girlfriends. That's what girlfriend's for. And so I want to talk with you, but he taught me how to talk with him in a way that he enjoyed it, not just got closed off. And so you can't just glaze over and go, she's just going to go. Teach her, okay? She's going to go. Teach her how to make you want to talk to her. Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm glad you brought this point, because I had to teach my wife to do that, because for me, all the details were interesting, but when you get to the main point, then all the details can be attached.
They make sense to you.
But we don't know that.
Yeah, we're taking you on a journey, but you're like, I know where to go. The fourth need of a woman is leadership. We really need you to initiate in leading in issues, but we don't need you to dominate. We want to be treated as equals, but we want you to lovingly initiate conversations about the children. We want you to initiate romance. We want you to initiate conversations about finances and spiritual matters. Many men want to say, but I'm just more passive. Well, even if that's true, you need to step up. You're the man, and we need you to initiate the conversations about those things. Begin conversations about these things, but don't make decisions without us. Equal partner, but you are the initiator, and that is so romantic. That kind of leadership is so
But
romantic.
a controlling woman will fight you for that. And you can, rather than just become passive, honey, you're just going to do whatever you're going to do anyway, so just do it. Right? You need to tell us that, do you want me to lead or not? Do you want to be the leader? If you want to be the leader, I'll stop, because each time you do, each time I try, you criticize what I do. Is it you that wants to lead here?
But if she has feedback, don't take that as criticism. If you say, honey, I would like to do this in our finances, and then you dialogue, it's not a monologue. Don't be a dictator. Don't dominate it. Have a dialogue about it. Help her to understand why that's the decision. And then listen to what she has to say, does she have some good feedback that could help you? Just because she will come back with a dialogue about it doesn't mean that she's criticizing you about that. It just, she wants to have a conversation about it, it's not a monologue, it's a dialogue back and forth.
I'm going to move us a little bit ahead here, because I want you to talk real quickly about counseling. Sometimes you're just stuck. You just get to a place where you think, I don't know what to say anymore. And one of the things that I hear as women's ministry leader oftentimes is, my husband won't go to counseling. So sometimes when you're stuck, you need to seek it for her sake. Why don't you talk for a minute about that?
So Danny and I, 4 months after we were married, we went to counseling. So we were, I was 25, 24, and thought we had it together and just could not get along, and our differences separated us. And so we started counseling. We went for 9 years, on and off, and more on than off, and met with 3 different counselors. And now I look back and I think, thank you, Jesus, for the help that our church provides, and just the pursuit that my husband had, because there was a season where I thought I couldn't do it anymore. I just thought, this is not working. Him and I do not get along. Everything was an argument. I mean, if I saw black, he saw white, and now we're able to laugh about it. It hasn't changed. God has just healed us, because we just know that if I like this, he's gonna like that, and I just know it. We kind of just see it differently. And anyways, I wanted to share 3 things that I learned in counseling. Our culture has created such a bad taste in your mouth for going to counseling. Like, you are messed up, you are wrong, or the counselor's gonna sit you on a long chair and say, tell me all your childhood problems. It is very misconstrued in our culture, and what I have gotten from counseling, and I love to share it, I'm a huge advocate for going to counseling, but one is counseling is meant for practical tools, and there's different levels of marriage problems. Some you just need some tools. These things aren't working, maybe the love language, maybe some communication tools are gonna be just enough for you. That was not just enough for Danny and I. We had to do spiritual healing too, which is number 2. We needed to go back in our past and work out some things, because typically, and I'm sure you guys have heard this, but typically what you bring in has to do with how you were raised. So sometimes you have created beliefs and lies about how people love you or how you're to love people, and they're just not true. And you need to go to counseling to have them help you kind of submerge them and wipe them away.
Because love is an unconditional commitment to an imperfect person. Mm-hmm. You're both imperfect, and you can leave this situation for another person, but it's still going to be an imperfect person. Yeah. And so you can really work through the situations you have if you're willing to do the hard work.
Yeah. Even some of what she was just talking about, I was picturing that some of you guys were thinking, I am not telling my wife this or that because she's just going to be offended, you know. Those things have to be dealt with in counseling. Sometimes you need that third party to say, why are you so offended about that? Because there really isn't a need for an offense. But
Larry had it, just a quick.
Oh, yeah.
Being married for almost 30 years,
Mm-hmm.
2 scriptures that came to mind that actually helped bless my marriage. On the man's side,
Mm-hmm.
Proverbs says that a righteous man overlooks an offense.
Mm-hmm.
Many times I was offended by my wife, something she would say, and she was right, but my pride and my selfishness, because we're so selfish. Mm-hmm. It's about, in the beginning, I mean, it was about me. It was my needs not being met. Yeah. And when I learned that scripture, it just opened up the doors to overlook the offense that my wife's not really trying to say things to hurt me. She's trying to say things to help me. Mm-hmm. And the second was Proverbs 18:22, says, he who finds a wife finds what is good and receives favor from the Lord. I mean, to truly receive God's favor in my marriage was that he placed us together, and it took many years to put this thing together too, but it was understanding, it was love, but it was more, like you said, of a gift. It was my selfishness, but to overlook that offense, that, you know, I'm not really being offended, but I'm not hearing my wife.
Right. Mm-hmm. And again, that goes back to the beginning where we said we're just made differently. We see things differently. But anyway, so first was practical tools, spiritual healing was second, and third is foundational strengthening. The last counselor we saw, I loved because he went down to the root. And as a Christian, you know, you could be a Christian for 20 years, but there are things that need to be revamped. They were never strengthened from the beginning, and they need to be strengthened now. And so I just encourage you guys, you know, the Bible says a wise man seeks counsel. There is no shame. There never should be shame in saying, Jesus, something's wrong here. I want to go to you. And that's what it is going to someone else saying, give me a different perspective, because I know she loves me. I know she's not perfect, because the Bible says that we're not going to be perfect until we're with Jesus. So why are we surprised that We're still disappointed at times. So if we can just embrace that and we go to someone for help, I think that we're going to find a reward, right?
Yeah, yeah. And another big point for women is the children in your family. It's really important to us that you help us with the kids, that you love them, that you're working with us. And they also, like Mark said something that was really great when the kids were little. I was so frustrated. He comes in and he grabs me, he holds me, and he tells them, "Go away. She was mine before she was ever yours." And it just told me that, I didn't really get married to have kids, to have a family, to be separate from Mark all the time. He was just telling me, "You have value to me." And we were laughing about it and talking about it. So he was always telling me, grab my hand and say, "We're a team. It's us against them," right? And so it just helped me remember, they bring a lot of frustrations in, and they actually, when you have a young family, a lot of exhaustion for your wife. So why don't you talk about can we bring up that list, Jim, of practical ways to build intimacy in this season of life?
Well, having children is a game changer for those of you that have had it. It's a new territory in which you as a person grow in a different way you've never grown before. Your love languages can change. I used to be physical touch. I'm touched all day. I have 5 children, touched all day. Physical touch is very low on my list right now. Bummer for Danny, but it is. The flesh dies because you're no longer living for yourself or just you and your wife, right? Hobbies are a thing of a past fading away. You need more money. You have less quality time with your spouse. Do they come up one at a time? Or do we not have it? So anyways, moms work hard at loving, talking, nurturing, routine, schedules, discipline, refereeing, cleaning, and more. And I had to read all those because I felt like we do a lot. It's shocking. I can speak for all moms. We're shocked at how much it took. We never imagined how much it would take to be a mom. And if you partner with her in some or all of these areas, the weight starts to lift off of her. So it is a heavy thing all day long. We are asking the Lord to help us. So I wrote these out, some practical ways to build intimacy. And this is just what I've experienced being a busy mom. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I do a little bit of work, but it's really minor. When my husband brings home dinner, so we have a set schedule where he brings it home every Thursday. I love it. It's just one day I don't have to cook. That just relieves a little bit of burden. That is kind of like foreplay. Do you understand? That means that there is a little more room in her schedule and her life where she can think about something else than what she's done every day. It's really a monotonous job oftentimes being a mom. Or you can make a meal. She might find you far more attractive. Public displays of affection. This is so simple. That means touch her. If you're at church, hold her hand. This is like physical touch leading nowhere. Okay? You don't want to train her that every time you touch her, it means you want to have sex. That just wouldn't be helpful in this arena. So what you want to do is touch her more often, put your arm around her, sit close to her when watching a movie. My husband was not good at this, and my very first homework assignment from Michael Cook was I had to tell Danny to put his arm around me. It was death. I sat on the couch thinking this is the stupidest thing. I'm married to him, and I have to tell him to put his arm around me. And I remember literally tearing, saying, "Could you please put your arm around me?" And he, "Oh, yes," like so, and I'm like, "Just do it, okay?" I didn't want all the added because it was so hard for me to get that I had to ask him. And it's because we grow up in a culture that's romanticized. But anyways, it was still great that I asked him. So touch, touch, touch. Be the primary discipliner. If you have children, it is a relief, a sense of relief to me. I discipline all day long all my children to say when dad comes home. Ooh, it's a big deal. So be the primary discipliner. They know you mess with mom, you're messing with me. That is security, like Fawn talked about. Really important to me. Clean. Any type of cleaning says this is not your problem, this is our problem. We're going to do this together. I'm your partner. So any type, we do a 5 o'clock pickup every day. Danny gets home, and that's what we do. We spend 10 minutes doing it. I love it. Another thing where I'm not feeling like, oh, this is all my thing I have to get done. Another great act is put the kids to bed. That is quality time with your children. Mealtime and bedtime are amazing relationship builders with your kids. So, but putting them to bed gives me 40 minutes or 30 minutes of whatever I want to do, and that might be slip into something more comfortable, or whatever the case is. You want it to, you're trying to say, we're a partner in this. I don't ever want you to be so exhausted. If a husband comes home and says, I worked all day and now I'm off, well, how unfair is that? Because I worked all day and I'm still on, and it doesn't end. It's the same job. So if you're coming home saying, now we're partnering, I feel a little bit relieved, and the job is different for you. So, and my husband also does a dad's day out where he takes all the kids, and it could be sporadic. We haven't done it for a while, but just say, would you like, I can see it's been an overwhelming week. How about Friday I take the kids out on an adventure? He'd take them frog hunting or something, and you just do whatever you want to do. Very motivating for me. Very, I feel loved. I feel like he watched me. He knew that I was tired. I'm not always tired, but he knew it. He responded to it. I feel loved now. And then this one is so important. Implement a new rule. When you ask your wife to have sex, if she says no, we don't say no anymore. We say when. When can you? So you are giving her the freedom to say today is just not a good day. For whatever reason, doesn't matter, but tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night, I say a 24-hour turnaround. They can't say next month, I'll meet you. It has to be a 24-hour turnaround, okay? But you be able to say in 24 hours, whatever, tomorrow night, I will make sure this happens, or whatever. So anyways, those are some examples I have.
So in the bags that we gave you, there are some funny things in there, and I just want to explain them real quick because these are tools. Fawn talked about non-sexual touch. We respond, the silly thing that Mark sent me all those hearts as a text, I couldn't believe what it did in me that he didn't have to think about me and he was thinking about me. So in the bags, there's a paint pen. Do you know if you, on your bathroom mirror, write a note to your wife, you take a shower, she's still sleeping, whatever, and you say, looking forward to, we'll miss you today. And you leave, do you know she'll take pictures of that and send it to her friends? It'll be, or right on the window of her car, can't wait to see you, or thanks for your hard work. Something you go, really? Really? It makes a big difference that you think about us when you don't have to. There's sticky notes. When you go down and pour yourself a cup of coffee, write a little sticky note and put it on her cup. We'll miss you today. Thanks for doing my laundry. Honestly, if I see that, all of a sudden, it's just intimacy increases. We start to think about what you want us to think about, okay? So there's also just cards in there. You can go to the store and buy 10 cards and one trip. And every couple of weeks, write a little card to your wife. It's four sentences. It just doesn't matter, the fact that you wrote it, and you put it there. These things make a difference to us. So we just put some of those things in there for you with some date things. I want to get straight to some questions here. Some of them that came online and some of them that you just wrote. One is, do you think my tractor's sexy? And I'm going to tell you yes, if you use it to provide for the family. If you're a hard worker and a tractor is what you need, then we love it. Or if we see our kids on the tractor with you while you're teaching them to drive it and work it, now you're involved with our kids, you're helping them gain a skill. We're just watching you out the window, and our intimacy level is rising because of that. All right? So yes, tractors can be sexy. All right. Now, what would you consider the number one thing men do to turn their wives off?
Ignoring them would be one. Oh, sorry. I'm so loud in my own head. I would say ignoring them, not knowing them, is one, but character is another really big issue. Character prevents me from being able to respect you, so your character really is so important.
It's hard, and I think pornography is a big deal. I can tell you that within 6 months of women getting married, they will call me in tears, crying, frustrated, hurt. And the man will have said, this isn't about you. They'll have found something, and he says, it's not really about you. But she can't hear that. She only hears, you're looking somewhere else than for me. And then your intimacy level just decreases. Or it might really increase for a little while because she's so insecure. She's trying to figure out, maybe I need to give him something I'm not giving him. But it causes deep problems in a marriage. And that is something that we have all kinds of stuff here to work on. So that's another big thing. Or wanting sex without emotional intimacy. You start texting your wife today, can't wait to see you tonight, whatever. You just little texts, that is warming her up and making her more receptive to you, because these are non-sexual, they're not a touch, but it's a verbal, non-sexual thing saying, I'm thinking about you.
I've heard a great quote that says foreplay starts in the morning, because women like to be slow roasted, right?
We didn't try to make ourselves that way.
how
That's
we
just
were
the way
made.
we are. It's something that we have to learn we both have to learn. Okay,
On the sexual parts, like my wife, or if you bring up something sexual, says, you're always bringing up something sexual. Well, so is that wrong?
Are you always bringing it up? We got the microphone, buddy. No, I'm just kidding.
Something was brought up, and it was, and you're, I guess how I can rephrase this, and you're thinking sexual thoughts. It's like you're always thinking sexual thoughts or something, towards that nature. And I'm thinking, well, what's wrong with that?
so that's your attempt to tell her, I love you and I want you.
Right. So it's like flirty.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's not her love language.
That's where you ask her, what would you need? What would
is her
you
love
like?
language? Yeah.
If you don't like that, what is it you like?
You have to be willing to learn how. Love language is like she speaks French and you speak German, and you're speaking German at her, and she's like, I have no idea what you're saying. You have to be willing to learn to speak French to talk to her.
One of the things I loved about Mark was that he was really gentle in asking me questions that made me embarrassed. Or we needed to understand each other, and rather than him going, well, what the heck do you want? It was like, help me understand. I don't understand what you're saying. And he would pull it out of me, and I loved that with gentleness, because if he wasn't gentle, he wasn't going to pull it out of me. I wasn't going to say it. So be gentle and kind. What do you need? I thought this would make you know I loved you. It obviously didn't. What do you need? Would be a good response. So which brings us to, I always have to initiate making love. Why doesn't she? Okay, that's a complicated question. If she's rarely fulfilled, she's not going to desire it. So that's a question you have to figure out between the two of you, and why not just ask her? One of the things, you can just say, why is this? What makes this hard? What makes this difficult? You have to provide and not right after you had a fight or something like that. In a different scenario, set up a situation, you take her out to dinner and say, let's talk about this. What makes this difficult? Because I don't really know why a woman doesn't want to, other than not being fulfilled or not having, like she said, we're slow and we need to. If you start texting me in the morning, or I look at my coffee cup and there's a note, or there's something sitting in my car, a note on all of a sudden I'm changing inside because my emotions are changing. I'm getting emotional for you, right?
I think, too, we live in a pornographic, saturated world, and so that is how pornography displays it, is that women are going to come after you. And I think so there's a little bit of untraining there to say that that's really not necessarily how it's going to be. I'm not saying that it can't be a little bit or whatever, but I just think that there is a lot of that idea in the world.
And it speaks to a man. For a woman to desire him, it speaks to a man. It's an important need that they have. But they're not necessarily going to be initiators all the time.
So this question is, how then do I talk to my wife without getting frustrated? Well, I really appreciated that Mark just made an effort he would grab my hand, I would pull it away, and, like, I'm not going to let you touch me, and he'd grab me and said, no, we're going to hold hands, and we're going to talk. Because it said to me, I'm trying to understand, and I'm sure he was very frustrated at times, because I tended to be the testy, loud one, and he was he kept talking until I calm down, and we could get to a place of understanding. Or maybe you realize in this situation right now, I can't. She's too mad. Well, then you have to make a time that says, I'm going to come and pick you up, or let's go sit out in the back with a glass of wine. Let's just talk. So there has to be a gentleness for a woman to open up. And if she won't, that's where you go. You say, let's go see someone who will help us. I love you so much. I need to understand you, and I don't. And if you start to get angry, just leave. Say, I'm going to talk to you in a minute. And leave and go do what you need to do to settle down. I had to leave a lot to settle down. I just got mad easy in the beginning. So you leave, you settle down, you come back and say, okay, I think I can talk now. But if the anger gets there, it shuts everything down.
You can't make her pay a price for being honest. If she finally opens up and is honest, you can't make her pay a price for being honest with you.
I think change of scenery is great when you're going to bring up a heavy topic. But I think counseling too, I just think sometimes you need a tool. You just can't communicate. I just know that all that Danny and I have been taught has been, come through Michael Cook or some of the other people we've seen, and it's just so incredibly helpful that we've had something to go to. And I will say this, my husband led the way, did exactly what Mark did, always held my hand, even when I didn't want to, always said, we're gonna be okay, this is gonna work, always spoke that kind of security over me, even if I didn't wanna believe it or didn't believe it at times. He always walked me through it and took me, there was a time I didn't even wanna go to counseling because we had gone to it so much, I just thought that this is not gonna help to go again. And he just said there is nothing more important than our marriage. And
I think sometimes men don't want to go to a women counselor because you think she's just going to tell me what's wrong with me. So you take the lead and you choose, go find a man that's really good. Say, we're going to go 4 times and see if this helps us. Set a limit for yourself. Like, I can't go and talk about my feelings for 6 months. But I can go 4 times, and let's make a decision after 4 times about whether we're done or not. Are you going to say something?
I would say that counseling is hard work. You will have homework, so you have to be prepared that when you're going, it's not going to be like they're just going to listen to your problems and try to sort it out. They're going to give you homework and things for you to actually have to work on, and so that becomes a challenge.
So we're looking at our time. We're going to finish with just 2 questions here, okay? One is, my wife loves working, but also struggles with security and trusting that I can or will provide. How do I help build that trust in her? Now, I like this question because I get both of them in women's ministry. One where women are working because their husband really wants them to, because you guys get security from nice things. Men look at you and go, well, that's a nice car, that's a nice tractor, that's a nice house, right? So when the wife works, you can get nicer things, but then an insecurity comes into your wife because she looks at the kids and realizes somebody has got to love and parent them. And sometimes we think, we'll just do that while they're toddlers and once they get into school. But there's so much in the life of a kid that needs a mom around and home. So if your wife is saying, I really want to be home with the kids, I would say find a way. Find a way to not have the nicer things or work through maybe a less tough schedule for her. In this case, she struggles with security. There was a point I had to go to the Lord and say, I trust you with Mark. I'm not sure Mark gets it all or understands it all or knows all about finances. I was worried and scared. And I had to come to the Lord and say, but he listens to you, so I will be okay. So it helps when you talk and say, and let her know what your plan is. You might have a plan, but we don't know that you have a plan, so we get scared. When the money's not there, we don't know what to do, and that is a problem.
Ask her a question. Ask her the question. Mine her heart to find out what's going on inside of there. She may not know why she's afraid, but ask her questions. Increase her internal pressure to find out what's going on inside of her that's making her afraid. Because what is of fear is not of faith. So you got to find that out.
Remember, security, acceptance, and help me. What? Significance. That's what we're teaching you here. Okay, so very last question. Those 3 things grow, and your intimacy will grow, I promise. And you have to ask her, how do I help those things grow in you? Last question, I love this. If you had one piece of advice for a husband that would increase his sex life, like what could I do tonight after this conference that would make my wife say like, dang, that was sexy. Who is that man? Okay. So I would say start sending her loving texts right now.
I would say, like, go home and ask her a question. Say, so how are you doing? How am I doing as a husband? Ask the question, how am I doing?
I would say go home and say, let's take the love language again. Let's see where we're at. And let's talk about it because I want to love you how you want to be loved.
See if the dishes are done. If not, do them. Ask her what she needs help with. Then snuggle and ask her how her day was. How was your day? Right? And just watch and see what will happen. Now, if we have, Jim, I'm going to need that last quote. If we have not answered your questions or cleared up much for you, I'm going to read you a quote so you'll know exactly what to do at this point. This came in from Drew Miles. He sent in questions and said, yes, I am an expert in all these areas. These questions are more for the other guys going to the conference. So, any questions left, you just call Drew Miles and he will have the answer to this. So God bless you. Thank you.